All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you all had a chance to recharge, network during the break, hopefully get some coffee. I know I had a couple espressos to make me feel alive for the afternoon. It's now time to continue the summit with our next session titled From Digitalization to Digital Transformation. We live in an increasingly digital world, and it's crucial that businesses and governments adapt to this new reality. This session will explore the challenges and opportunities of digital transformation and its impact on various industries. I'm very happy to say everybody so far has been great at using the Slido app to ask questions, so make sure we keep doing that throughout this session. If it's about digital transformation, let's use the app to make sure we're doing that. And I'll welcome the team to the stage for this next session. Welcome, guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know that we have probably the toughest task at hand because we have to keep your attention now after lunch, and we all know how difficult that is. So we will not try to crack a few jokes like it's a stand-up comedy show, but I do need to have your attention. That's why I started off a little bit off script. So because I have such wonderful people here in our panel today from such different backgrounds that I think that we can have a very wonderful discussion. I do hope that you use the Slido application so that you can actually give more input to this panel, because there are a lot of things that we can cover today, and I think that they can be very exciting. And these gentlemen's expertise and knowledge and past experience is so vast that I think that we can all contribute by putting our input in and giving them a chance to explain everything that they have in mind today. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Vladimir Ristevski. I'm a partner and creative director in Piksel, which is a company that's a digital solution partner that has a lot of clients from Macedonia and abroad. And we've been working in the digital space for more than 10 years now. The company is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year, and I'm very pleased to have such honored guests here, and I'll present them shortly. We have with us Sasa Bilic, who is the CEO of Apis IT from Croatia. We also have the privilege to welcome Mr. Gerhard Laga, who's the head of e-Center of the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. And of course, last but not least, is Vladimir Đorđević, General Manager of Southeast Europe at Visa. So these esteemed gentlemen will help us have a very fruitful discussion today. But before that happens, because I want to see some of the responses from you in the crowd, I would like to ask Maria to put on the screen the first question for Slido, which you can answer, and then we'll come back to the results shortly. So, do you consider yourselves digitally literate? This is a very interesting question that's going to help us throughout so that we can get a sense of the room, and we'll continue with the answers shortly. So first off, let me try to open the stage by welcoming all you fine gentlemen here, and I would ask my first question to Mr. Sasa Bilic. In your opinion, what is the critical success factors for digital transformation project, and how do you ensure that all factors are met? This is something that is truly interesting, and I hope that you can give us your perspective.
First, warm welcome to everyone. It's nice to be here in Skopje. Well, I would say people, but not, just in one word. So, Apis as a company is obviously an IT solution provider. We are developing complex IT solutions for the Croatian government since more than 50 years. Our best knowledge, or let's say our best experience when developing such stuff and let's say helping our customers digitally transform themselves and their business is, I would say, multicultural approach, meaning that it's not everything is about IT. Of course, IT is an important thing, whether it's software development, system, infrastructure, and so on. What we are doing is multicultural approach, meaning that We don't have a single team within our company that's facing customers that doesn't have economists, legal staff, legal people, colleagues, ladies and gents, project managers. In some cases, there are even like people from cultural background, depending on the project, people from agricultural background, veterinarian, and so on, meaning that in order to, from one hand, access customer needs in the best way, you need to have this multicultural, multifunctional team, for one hand side. And our best experience is when we approach customer in that way, there are much fewer obstacles when implementing some digital solution, because we talk with them, we listen to them, we collaborate with them, we suggest them some things, and even when we show them that we have in-depth knowledge of their business, always is this feedback then, much better than, for example, if you are trying to enforce something. And I would say this is the best way when we are talking about digital transformation of a certain business or a certain, stream within a certain organization.
And Mr. Laga, in terms of the SMEs that your institution is working with, what would you say that the biggest challenges are, especially bearing in mind that most of them come from, fully analog branches and they have no touch points in terms of digital? What's the biggest challenge that you face when you're helping them digitally transform?
Well, again, thank you very much for the invitation. I think it's a matter of time. We have quite some experience. We interact and try to support our members since 25 years in the matter of digitalization. Although 25 years ago we didn't call it digitalization. We were doing road shows and educate them what they can do with ISDN lines and just normal access to the internet. And this was in the beginning. Then I would say from 2020 or 2010, it was more access to the internet and what they can really do there, visibility. And in the meantime, it's getting better that they really think of how they can use digital media for their normal problems they have. Again, several years ago, it was more selling online, visibility online. As it's nowadays, one of the main topics is employer branding and finding employees online, for instance, via social media. So it's not that they go, or naturally still they do, but they go to headhunters. They go to a social media company and ask them to help them be visible to possible employees, that they get very easy contact to the company just via, on the evening when the people sit in front of the TV, they scroll with their social media platforms, and then they see, okay, this could be an interesting job. Although I'm not really searching for one, but this sounds great, I just leave my email address. And then there is at once, or not at once, but the next day, they get in contact with the company. So it's very easy to get in touch with new employees. And the most important thing is that they lose the fear of this new digital world. And we try to do this since 5 years now with a program which is called in German KMU Digital, is SME Digital. It consists on one hand on a much funded consulting, like half a day. There are 800 certified consultants and they have to do not what they want, the consultants. There is a brand and a specific program they have to do half a day with the company, so the company knows what they get. They have to pay for it, 500 euros, but 80% are funded back from the government. And the goal is to identify 6 goals or 6 topics out of 50, how digitalization can help them. And we're talking not about digital companies, we're talking about the butcher, the baker, so the really analog companies on the countryside, to help them close this digital divide and see the chances they have, and not only thinking about negative things and negative experiences they have, like the former customers are buying anything at Amazon now, but we show them the chances of the digital world actually. And how we do it is on a face-to-face basis. As said, there are these 800 certified consultants. They are coming from the region, so they are talking actually their dialect. So this is a face-to-face basis and not that some clever people from the capital are coming down and looking to them. They can really, they are in their environment and they pick them up where they are. And I think that's one of the secrets why already 20,000 companies in Austria use this program.
Perfect, thank you. And Mr. Đorđević, what are the key digital transformation initiatives that you have implemented within the Southeast European region, and how have they impacted business and governments?
Well, quite a lot, to be honest. First of all, thank you very much for having me here, and I would like to say thank you to the audience here paying your attention. So just before I come to that, I would really like to go back to this digital transformation mantra that we are hearing all the time, and I would like to share one really interesting thing I learned last week only, and I like to share things, the new things I learned. So it's all part of digital transformation. So basically, everyone, the first association when we say on digital is IT. You know, it's technology. Technology is always the key. But there are so many layers of digital transformation that we experienced as a company as well through the history of more than 60 years that we exist. So basically, I learned very good formula, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. It says IT, which is technology, plus o equals EOO. Now, does anyone know what, have everyone heard about this one? So IT stands for IT, it's technology, we all know. OO means old organization, but that equals to EOO, which means expensive old organization. So this is, I think, something that, you know, you should think about when we come to this. So it's not just, you know, to think of technology, invest in technology, but also you need to change the mindset. You need to change the culture. And it may be a techie thing saying changing the culture, but I will then use it for this example of actually answering your question. So Visa as a company, you can easily say it has been a first fintech when that term did not exist, so back in the 1950s. So it was actually the disruptor in the market. So this is what needs, you know, this is the trigger that needs to go, that needs to happen to get the whole organism moving and the whole system moving. So, and you can apply to technology and to these revolutions that we've seen in the past. You can see the cycles which are pretty much similar to industrial revolutions that we had. So it took much more time from 1958 to, I don't know, 70s, with you know, computers being more in use, then from 70s to 80s, from 80s, and then all those periods are becoming shorter and shorter. So what we've seen in a technology development, and I can talk about payments obviously and technology behind payments, what we've seen in technology in the last maybe 6-7 years, it's more than it was achieved in the last 60 years. But those cycles are getting shorter, and we as the industry and everyone and all the companies and the governments, we need to accommodate to those things. So coming back to what we achieved, and I can tell you we've been in the region of Balkans for 40 years. And it's been a long face-to-face transactions, as you can imagine. It was, you know, I believe that many of you can remember those physical machines that were used at the time. But if you look at it, it was even used beginning of 21st century, guys. This hasn't been so long ago. But then you had online that was a little shy in, and then you moved with online being like completely like a new normal. Then you have all the carbon files storing the different applications without, I believe that many of you do not know where your physical card is, so everything is on the phone. So these would be probably the highlights that we achieved. And again, coming to the first point, technology by itself means nothing. So then we need the flip side of the coin, where we need to have people adopting it. And people showed that they are adopting it very well. So it took us, that was a big leap from maybe 2016, 15, when we started all the contactless technology, when at that time it was all in the sci-fi sphere, but now I believe there are, if we take, for example, Macedonia as a reference point, we have almost 100% terminals which are contactless. The same with the cards. Phones that are enabled on payments on contactless technology. So it all happened overnight. And for the generations to come, sky is the limit. What will be the new structure? And coming back just to point on habits. So this is very, very important driver on digital transformation. So making the technology accessible and understandable. So this user experience thing. So this is our job, I would say, the job of the industry. Again, I'm limited to payments to be quite precise. And this is where our role is to get those products and services that they are adopted. And again, I will reference through researches that we are doing, and it's called New Digital Habits, is where we can see very, very clearly that more than 2/3 of people are using already those kind of things. 90% of people that we asked about technologies are using online, all of those features, which means that we did something good, I would say, us and the industry here.
So this begs an interesting question that might be asked for all the panelists in general. What are the biggest roadblocks for people accepting new technology? Is the biggest problem people and culture and organizations? Is it them understanding what the benefits from this new technology is, or is it something third? Is it maybe all of the stakeholders that are implemented? So maybe we can reverse the order and start with Mr. Laga.
We did this 20,000 consulting talks in the meantime, and naturally we always ask what is the main burden for you to go on in digitalization, and the number one answer is time. So we cannot multiply time, obviously, but when they say time, it's a matter of attention. So digitalization, they don't have time for digitalization, which means that in the management perspective, it's not as important as the daily business. So therefore, it's a matter for the managers of the companies or the owners of the companies to determine who shall care for digitalization in their micro-enterprise. So to name one person who has to remind the boss every week, okay, what are we doing in digitalization? Secondly, it's financial topics. Okay, if you look at digitalization projects, you have up to 1 year that the money is coming back. You have to invest, yes, but this is nothing special for digitalization to organize money and then you invest and then you get the return back. So I think it's mainly management attention.
And Mr. Bilic, your take on this?
Well, I would agree that time is one of the key points. Also, it will be on the top of my list. But regarding the fact, at least from our experience, and we mainly work with the customers who already have most, if not of their processes digitized, but there is a certain need for the definition, re-engineering and so on. So time, from the perspective that they have to do their daily job and still be involved in a, redefinition of what they are going to do tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So I would say time is the first thing. Luckily, we don't see issue of money because there is, at least up to now, sufficient money in the government, both from the national budgets and from the EU funds, at least in Croatia. And the third thing I would say is resources, both from the side of the customer and us being a service provider and market that we are cooperating with. I would say that there is no issue about technology, how to use, what kind of technology is behind, at least up to now. And if you were noticing when you asked me the first question, I didn't even refer to the technology issues. Yeah, so.
Yeah, you're completely right. And what about you, Mr. Đorđević?
I would agree on this, definitely. So basically technology is not an issue, it's there. The only, this is the question of trade-offs. which way will you go? So yeah, time, resources, is there, but it's probably case by case analysis. So it depends. So maybe we'll have companies that have all three in place: technology, time, people. But I would say it's the pace of the development, the pace, the amount of available technologies, things, everything that is now we are taking for granted, to be honest. So I believe we are getting more and more into that mode of thinking about technologies there. But this smart use of both, combination of smart use. So I believe personally that there can be a good balance between, as you said, Sasha, day-to-day job and something and the need to change. And this is probably something that most of the companies, big companies are talking about in the last years. It's this change of mindset, change of culture, and it works. But this is something where we should focus where you should put your focus.
Okay, can we get the results from the first slide of questions on the screen? I'm really anxious to see what the results are. So as you can see at the question, do you consider yourself digitally literate? The majority of people have answered yes, but some of them have answered no. So do you believe that education is part of the solution to the problem of getting better results in digital transformation? And I'll just like to sum up some of the questions that are coming in from the audience. Can we maybe further elaborate on the difference between digitalization and digital transformation, and maybe even touch upon the topic of digital maturity, just so people can get a better idea of what these three terms actually mean and what the slight differences are between them. So maybe we can start with Mr. Bilic.
With me. You want to have theory what's digitization, what's digital transformation, or no, just kidding. I mean, yeah, digitization, those two things are quite commonly being mistaken one for another. If you digitize certain process, then you digitize it. You don't use paper, you have certain workflow, and to a certain level, we are talking about automation. If you are talking about digital transformation of an organization, company, I don't know, pillar, department, whatever, that it means that you are fully digital. You don't print out something, sign, and then put it back in the system. As you mentioned quite before regarding the e-invoice, I'm sure you will say something about that. So it's overall, let's say overall transformation of a company to be fully digital. It's not only back office stuff, but also front office, meaning the products and services certain companies doing or selling. And I think that we would all agree that the pandemic we had 3 years ago really showed that almost all businesses are able to digitally transform. Yeah.
So how do the products that you work on within your company help the stakeholders that you have in the end users go through this process of digitalization in a full manner of digital transformation? And what problems do you face along the way? Oh, that's for you. I'm sorry.
For me as well.
Yes.
Well, again, coming back to your previous question, it's there is a challenge of time and resources, both within our organization as a service provider and the customers who are anyhow wanting and approaching us in order to help them. I would say that, again, not talking about technology behind that, it's about processes and how to say, mutual arrangement and mutual understanding of what customers want, what they want to change, and our knowledge of their business, in order from one side to listen their wishes, and in most of cases persuade them to do some things differently. And then later on comes, software development and implementation. And of course, coming back also to the poll question from the audience, education is quite important. Education, implementation, and I would say at least 10 to 20% of time for certain digitization or digital transformation projects should be spent on learning.
Thank you. And Mr. Laga, your opinion, and also as an addendum to the question, do you think that legislation usually helps the process of digital transformation, or does it hinder it in any shape or form?
Good question. I'm working on this issue of electronic invoicing since 17 years now, or around 17 years. And it's, I think it's a good example of what digitalize and digital transformation is, and where the difference is. So for instance, we have a law in Austria saying that if you have a contract with the government, you have to send the electronic invoices, you have to key the numbers of the invoice in a company service portal from the government in a structured form. Although 95% of all invoices in Austria of digital or electronic invoices are in the PDF format, and they are sent via email, which is probably common to all of you. This is just to digitalize a paper process, because you're not printing out the invoice anymore. You print it in a PDF document, and then you send the PDF document, and in the end, they key it in their financial software, and then it's getting paid. In reality, nothing's changed except of the process, the transport of the invoice. In reality, the process has to start by the purchase, because as soon as you purchase anything, you know what you purchase, and you know what you purchase it for. For instance, if you take a pen, you buy a pen for writing, or you buy pens for printing the brand of your company and giving it away. So in bookkeeping terms, you know in the beginning of the process, when you purchase anything, what you purchase it for. So you can already then, in the beginning of the process, say in your financial software, okay, I spent, I don't know how much, for pens, and this is not office material, it is advertisement material. So you can also book it on the right account. And then in the end, nowadays, it's so important, the invoice, and there is the invoice process, and everybody has to sign the invoice. It's too late. You already have the contract. You have to pay it anyway if the pens are there. So in reality, the clever thing is that you have to have a software also where you have all the materials which reach your company, and as soon as the pens are there, and this is checked that the pens are there, then comes the invoice, and the invoice can automatically be paid when it's the same amount what you already ordered. So you see that the process of signing an invoice that it's going to be paid is useless, because you have to pay it anyway. So this is what you probably also meant by thinking about the process. I mean, if you say to a butcher, to a baker, process, they think that's something in court. They don't think that they have processes. So you have to explain them with a simple example, how they change their, let's call it processes in this audience, we're digital literate, and give them examples. That it's too late to have a look at the invoice because they already bought it. They have to buy it anyway and pay it anyway. Again, then coming back to your question of legislation or not, there is this legislation by the government. Okay, so around 50,000 companies in Austria are affected by this legislation. They do, for instance, they're repairing a roof of a school somewhere in Carinthia, and this school is a federal school, so therefore this analog company now has to key in the numbers in the portal, and they think, oh, this is rubbish, I'm used to do my PDF invoices and send it, and they want to keep this process. And only for the government I have to do this. So they double the process. They do the PDF thing for 95% of the clients, and on the other hand, they do for the 5% of orders from the government, they do the structured invoicing. If there would be a law saying, okay, all invoices have to be structured electronically over one system, then we save a lot of money because all processes have to change. They don't need to be communication between the companies in which format, how to transmit it, etc., etc. And this is not a pipe dream I have. You just have to look to Italy. In Italy, this is the law since several years already. In the beginning, it was cumbersome for the companies because every company had to change. In the meantime, the government is collecting 5% more VAT. The processes are very effective. You just plug your financial software to an API and get all the invoices in there. And then you can look at the invoice data or not. I mean, it doesn't matter to have a look at the invoice data if you already have the accounting and the housekeeping software, so to say. So I think legislation is important, but it should not come with the hammer to all of them. There should be a long-term perspective, which is difficult in political terms, I know. But if you have a time frame like 5 years and give the company security, what will come when, and support them and educate them, which comes again to the advisors, which you need, then I think legislation can be, or is actually the example and the tool to bring us further, yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Đorđević, in terms of, as a follow-up to the previous question, what are some of the strategies and some of the key components that you use when collaborating with companies and businesses to help them develop their own way of doing the whole process?
No, this is very aligned to what we heard. So basically, first we need to have a bigger picture on the situation, to have a snapshot of the situation. And in this case, definitely, you know, education, even some, as you mentioned, government a regulatory framework is always welcome. And this all helps you to then to present that this digitalization versus digital transformation, as we heard, is something that will bring efficiency, cost reduction, better monitoring. So these are the components, very, very important components, besides what we mentioned on developing any of the comprehensive strategies when it comes to digitalization. So this is what, looking from perspective of Visa, is we have our clients, which are financial institutions, merchants, governments to a certain extent, and then we have cardholders, so that whole end user flow needs to be very clear and very educationally clear that this the end result is this what we mentioned. So more efficient, more cost effective, and how to say, providing you actually something which we discussed before the panel, based on the data that provides you, and giving you like now intro for the probably following part, but this data, that usage of that is something that is going to change the way we look at things, so all of us.
Okay, and since we touched upon the question of data, I would ask all of you again, how is big data playing into the whole process, and what examples can you give? Maybe we can start from Mr. Bilic and have him give us some of the success stories of digital transformation in Croatia, as he is also the Vice President of Euritas and a member of the Croatian ICT community.
Well, data is, of course, I mean, like new oil. Although data that's been owned by government, it's a bit tricky, you know, to utilize and use. That's the fact. But we are working a lot on a lot of big data tools, especially for the purpose of, for example, tax and custom administration on the fields of fraud management, auditing, and, you know, fraud prevention. Also, you know, we are preparing, or we are working on the dashboards for the Prime Minister and for the Minister of Finance to check overall wallet on a daily basis. So there is a lot of, you know...
so no pressure there.
It's working. I mean, there is pressure, but, you know, in this case, technology is working. Yeah?
Exactly.
So yes, in this respect, we are utilizing data as much as possible. There is also issue of open data, which we work with the government closely, you know, to allow the data that is open for the entrepreneurs, for the overall IT society, in order to use it for any kind of purpose, startups, and so on and so on. Apart from, let's say, daily operation, keeping data centers up and running, keeping the infrastructure up and running, and of course business application. Data is the third most important thing that we are working upon, yes.
And Mr. Đorđević, going back to you in the case of big data, what is Visa doing in terms of analysis, in terms of providing toolkits to its stakeholders in this respect?
This is, as Sasha said, the new oil. I haven't heard this for a while, and definitely that's the story. So basically, data helps us. So the amount of data we have insight in help us build really good, reliable systems. First of all, in security. So this is always, always it comes first association in mind when you talk about payments, technology, then obviously it brings up security. So definitely something that is very useful. So where you can see all the patterns, all the artificial intelligence, we can discuss that, we need 3 panels, not 1. It will not be enough on that. But all those things that we are using in creating the product, creating the service, and in communication with the clients. This is not just for purely technical business driven results, but basically you can see data, using data for promotions, for communicating. So I believe that every one of you with a smartphone, you receive all the information, based on your searches, based on your habits, based on your, so the same in payments. We can see, well, just a disclaimer, we don't know who is behind the number, obviously, but definitely we can see the data that we have insight, as I said, and we can create some how to say, pattern-driven solution for that, so we can direct some marketing offers, communication offers. I mean, again, sky's the limit on how we can utilize data, and this is really important. And with the technology and digitalization being more and more in our favor, working in our favor, this data is becoming more quality and more usable.
And Mr. Laga, in terms of, security of data and also all these things that hinder the process of digitalization and digital transformation, in your opinion, what's the best way to convince small business owners that have been mostly analog and traditional to make the jump, not just because they need it, but also because they're afraid of some of this technology and they don't trust it? What's usually the best case scenario here?
Well, I think again, it should be to pick them up where they are and explain it in the language that they can understand. And it's not easy from a top-down perspective, because you have to be on the one-to-one basis to understand the company, where they are technologically, where they are physically, where they are in the branch, and to explain how important it is, how important the data is for the company. It was probably not understandable for the companies like 10 years ago what this really means. Nowadays, with ransomware, where your data and your whole IT infrastructure is getting encrypted, you see that you are the person who pays the most money for your own data. And it's so important for you that you have, for instance, a backup to, if you get this ransomware, because there is no 100% security, that you can regain your data. And then probably they have a misunderstanding what data is, that if you say all your emails are gone, all your client contacts are gone, then they understand, okay, this is data, and therefore I shall protect it. Again, one has to explain it in the language with examples. They understand. We have, for instance, a hotel in Austria which has had this ransomware the 4th time. So first time, they thought, okay, something is happening. They call an IT guy. He fixed it, and then it was working again. And we're talking about this hotel who cannot open their own doors anymore, because the doors are with the key card, and this key card system was encrypted. I mean, this is existentiality for the company, for the hotel, obviously. Second time, they thought, okay, I know what to do, I call the IT company again. And then the third time they thought, probably I shall change my processes and I shall change my security system. This was not done well enough, so therefore they got the fourth time hacked. Why? Because the criminals, they tried the second time with the same procedure, as easy as this, because it's automated anyway. And then they learned how important data is. And again, coming back to this example of big data, these companies, analog companies, less than 10 people, they don't know what big data is and how it shall help them. And I may again stress this example of electronic invoicing. The most valuable business data are in the invoices. But until now, they don't know or they cannot analyze this data because they only get in their financial software the end of the invoice. So they key in, okay, if you're, for example, a company selling clothes, they key in, I don't know, goods from this company, and then they sell, they know naturally the prices, they sell the shirts and the trousers and all the details. But they don't know in detail for every good the detailed price in the history. But if you get this data now, not as a PDF document, where you see only the end, but if you get any line in your software, you can analyze 5 years back, 10 years back, how the prices you bought the goods, how they changed, and probably you then can analyze, okay, I have two companies delivering trousers or shirts or whatever, and I can compare the price development and then probably make some business decisions in order to get more profitable or to be more sustainable or whatever. But without data, you cannot do these business decisions. So this was always then in the stomach somehow from the bosses. Okay, I thought this was a good idea or this guy is friendly to me, but this was not depending on numbers. But if you get and analyze your invoices, for instance, in the history with structured data, then you can gain valuable business insights.
Thank you very much. Let's take another question from Slido Maria, if you can pull it up on the screen. And meanwhile, I would like to, well, okay. So, would you consider your organization to be digitally mature? So this is something that all of you need to think about while we continue the conversation with our dear panelists. And in terms of, data, I want to follow through. How do you believe, especially you, Mr. Bilic, how do you believe that AI and these newer technologies can influence in the analysis of big data, and what is it in terms of insights that we can get, and how far can we go with that and use it to our advantage?
Before answering that, I would just like to follow up what the colleague explained. We are just in the phase of implementing such system in Croatia, so meaning that there is going to be full detail analysis about each and every position on the invoice, based probably on HS custom target code. So we will see how it goes. I am not honestly in big fear of AI, especially if you are talking about government issues and governmental application, especially not across the board. So we do have some implementations. We have some chatbots that are being used in a customer care of our customers with, questionable success, but it's working. And we do have some elements of artificial intelligence that we all use in fraud management system. But I would say that's it. We are of course analyzing all that IT technology is offering and bringing, from blockchain, I don't know, AI, whatever, and we are really struggling sometimes to, first of all, to have a strong and feasible use case, again talking about government, and for one point, and second, use case that it's not 3 times more expensive than what's already being digitized and in place. So I'm a bit, careful about using AI in the field of where we are operating.
And what about Visa? You mentioned that you were and probably still are in the front center of and being front runners of innovation and everything. What's your stance of artificial intelligence, especially in data analysis and everything that's currently been very trending and interesting?
Before I answer, I would just like to meet 1/3 of the crowd here, which is digitally matured. It's 36%. I'm impressed.
Well, we'll see the results. They're still voting.
Okay.
We'll give it some time.
It was 36 before.
Yeah, you just watched it real time.
Yeah, good. So definitely, no. I think I must admit personally, I was a little bit among those skeptics on AI, but. Recent developments in cases where I had the opportunity to see for myself, and I heard a lot of experts in that field talking about it, so definitely it's a future. So, I mean, whether we like it or not, and we also what happened with Skynet and John Connor and everything else, but this is, let's leave it in that area. So no, this is something really that can help a lot in not just in our business, not just in our industry, but from the medicine, from science, from all the things that are really important for the humankind. So this AI is something that definitely have a future, and it will bring us much more than we can think of. Definitely what I mentioned also previously, is the data, process data. So there is no human brain that can process information as quickly as any of the modern processors. Even what you have, most of you are looking at your screens, so those processors you have in your hands are something that process information millions of times quicker than your brain can. So these kind of things are something we need to rely on. We are relying on, and definitely they've proven to be working in our favor so far. So I think this is it. No, as I mentioned previously, on protection side, on being on a risk protection, being on a fraud protection, on monitoring side, on recognizing things which are something that we cannot see for ourselves. These are the things we need to utilize AI in the future.
Okay, and to Mr. Bilic, what is something that governments can do to encourage businesses and organizations to invest in digital transformation?
Well, first of all, I believe that governments need to develop e-services, firstly for the citizens, then for the companies, that should ease interaction with the government, meaning to be as paperless as possible. This is the first thing that government has to do. Of course, in the backbone of that should be robust, secured infrastructure, both equipment, data centers, and application. That's for one. The government should also work upon interoperability of its databases and registries in order to provide for such services, because it's not very easy. It's easy when you have a greenfield, but when you have a lot of legacy and certain experience and technology eats you, then it's not very easy to work on a live organism. But it's feasible, of course. And in order to that, you need to have strong delivery organization within the government, or have good partnership with the IT community, for second. Government should also invest into connectivity, meaning building fiber optics infrastructure on those white places where commercial telecoms don't have like economic criteria or economic feasibility to do that, apart from the large cities, of course. And the government should subsidize as much as possible investment of especially SMEs, but also larger companies into digitization. From experience of Croatia, for all those things, we have access to different EU funds. And it's not only that the government should, find this money from the national budgets, so there is money from different resilient fund whatsoever. And one of additional examples that we now have in Croatia, it's closely related to legislation as well, is that we are planning to externalize our identification system. Up to now, it's being used solely for the government purposes. There are a lot of requests from the real economy to open it to real economy, of course, because it will save a lot of costs and it will make life easier. in order to do that, we need to change some laws, I mean legislation. But technically wise, it can be done tomorrow. So these are just few examples that, from my experience, government should do in order to make life easier for the citizens and enforce, sorry, wrong word, to let's say promote and allow for more digitization within the real economy.
Thank you, that was a great answer. And Mr. Laga, the same question to you. What do you think that governments can do to help speed up the process?
Spend more money on, on helping the SMEs. I think we're in a good way. We hope that we can, at least for SME Digital, double the budget next year. And it's a good investment because we ask the companies after, and again, we're talking about these analog companies, the butcher, the baker, and so on. And we ask them, now that you know which way you could probably go, how much would you invest? And the numbers show that €1 invested in the funding of the program generates 12 euros in investment from the companies then afterwards, in order to achieve smoother, faster processes and so the whole society gains through this investment. As you said, identification schemes are quite helpful. I had to log in, which are also used in private companies or organizations. We have this Austrian citizen card, which has a long story. It's probably quite strange that it's called citizen card, but it's not a card, it's a concept. So it's also a matter of communication. But it's quite easy because we have an app on the mobile and you just do a fingerprint and then you are in. But there is a quite sophisticated security system in the back with digital certificates, but you don't have to tackle it directly on a personal basis. You just install the app, you have to go to the registration officer once, and then it works. And I can log into the intranet of my organization with this government scheme. And again, in Austria, this matter of this company service portal and electronic invoicing to the government, you have to do this the same system with the fingerprint and so. It's not only naturally with the fingerprint, it's also with an SMS 10 for these companies who are not so familiar with the digital devices and are probably have some fears with biometrics. So you have to offer alternatives, but I think these investments are quite well and on the long term make definitely sense.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Đorđević, do you have some good example of supporting infrastructure to empower digitalization of payments, for example?
Well, definitely. So, I mean, these are, as I mentioned, we are enablers. We are enabling digital commerce. So, by all means, so pretty much everything that we do is something that is enabling those kind of transactions and behaviors. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, is so basically whatever we did in the past years in course of digitalization can be summarized in moving to online world, and also I have quite a few ideas to how this will evolve more. I mean, from what I've seen, from what I've heard. So basically, this also online, we stopped like we did online, enabled the online payments, but it keeps evolving. We completed like digital-only cards, which literally no need for physical cards, so it can be used whether online, whether in physical world as well. So I mean, this is the where the payments are moving to. So the demand is, I mean, it's pretty much the game of demand and supply. So we have more and more demand in these terms, and we are here to provide the supply.
Perfect, thank you. And Maria, can we get the final results from the Slido question? So let's see the level of digital maturity. So we have a whopping 44% of participants who deem their organization digitally mature. So this is interesting, and this is something that I can clearly say that helps a lot with other organizations. And if there's any opportunity that you can share some of your examples with the colleagues, I encourage you on tonight's networking event to share all your good experiences with them, because I believe that one of the reasons that we're here is to spread knowledge, to share positive examples among each other, to help empower other organizations grow where we have, and learn from others as well, if we can you know, maybe get the courage to start something that we've been fearing for a long time. And gentlemen, if you have any final words, because we're about to end our panel, feel free to wrap up this session.
Just a short saying, I learned recently, this is good, these questions are phenomenal, answers are phenomenal, I would say, but there is this saying, it always takes two to tango. So if you cannot dance tango alone, obviously, and you cannot do digitalization alone, you have to get the whole society get going, and therefore, still, if there are 60% already digital, let's help the other 40% to get digital as well, because then the whole society can use the benefits of digitalization.
Thank you very much.
You mentioned Eurita's couple of questions, just briefly to explain. So we are a pan-European organization of public IT providers with the headquarters in Vienna. So we have 27,000 employees Europe-wide, and our services is being used by more than 113 million people in Europe.
Wow.
We have the same issues, we have more or less the same services, we share the same values, the same knowledge, and at least it means that we are doing something right. That's the closing remark.
And Mr. Đorđević?
I'll be short, I guess. So digital is not something to be afraid of. So I mean, this is something, so embrace it. We are living in very exciting times, so that's it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone.